Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Line of Vienna Suite podcast, episode 176. It has been a full month since we've last spoken about Bolton Wanderers, and what a month it has been. And I couldn't think of many people better to talk about it than, first of all, than our usual guests, starting with Lee Trottatenzo. Lee, what are you drinking tonight?
I'm drinking. I only got one. I had to wash up. Couldn't even get to the shop to get any more. A Ghost Ship, very standard, very very readily available in all top supermarkets. Yeah, it's not so bad. Just a little tipple for tonight. Not too many. So hopefully I won't be waffling on till God knows what time.
That's how we like it, Lee. That's how we like it. And making his grand return, Line of Vienna, long-time readers and viewers will be familiar with this man. He certainly had his fair share of opinions over the years, and it's a pleasure to welcome him back. You might know us by initials. It's Mr. Chris Manning. Welcome back, Chris. How have you been?
Thanks, James. I've been really good. Thanks, mate. It's been a while, but I'm definitely pleased to be here. I appreciate the offer.
Yeah, I'm sure for some people it'd be nice to put a face to the man, but
some.
It looks like you got fireworks going on in the back, Chris, with the team, with your Atletico Madrid Real Madrid game in the back. You've got different colours in the background.
Looks this like is it. You guys start boring me. I'm just going to watch the Spanish football. Got my options open, haven't I?
We all do this. We all do the same at some points. It's fine. But yeah, Chris, considering it's probably been since the first season after promotion from League Two, some point around then, since we've last heard from you, I have to ask, what have you thought about Bolton Wanderers during Ian Everett's tenure in the last season or so?
It's been eventful, hasn't it? I think that's definitely one way of looking at it. I think it's been better than we probably could have hoped, especially after the first 6 months. I've said to Lee many times, I'm one of those knee-jerk fans that would have chopped him in the first 6 months. I think that was absolutely diabolical, the way we played though at the start of League Two. But then who could have predicted how it would have ended? You know, we've had some amazing days on the way in that league last season, Wembley, even this season. You know, it's been brilliant. I think on the basis of everything, I think he's done exactly what he came here to do. Maybe the way he's gone about doing some bits of it might rub some people up the wrong way. I know it's rubbed me up the wrong way on occasion. But I don't think you can necessarily argue with the progress we've made on and off the pitch. I think it goes hand in hand with the way the owners have done things and the way that the supporters wanted things to be done. It couldn't be any different, what could it, compared to what came before? So who knows what the future holds? But I think the last 18 months, 2 years have been probably better than we could have hoped for, given what came before.
Chris, you're not supposed to be this level-headed. You're normally supposed to be the man that stirs the pot.
Only when there's a pot worth stirring, you know. I mean, other than a few players that perhaps I might think are not quite up to it, it's not really like it used to be Wanderers, is it? It's a harmonious experience. It's a positive fan base on the whole. We've got problems, I think, in the squad, but all they are players that I think are perhaps playing above their level in terms of where we are in League One. And we can talk about that as the night goes on. It's not like in the old days, James, where we were the enemies of the club. You know, we were shit stirrers, we were warmongers, we were doing all kinds of things to sort of turn the apple cart upside down because it needed it at the time, didn't it? I mean, even the most ardent Bolton fan, anyone that's got the red screwed on, would struggle to look at the club at the minute and where they are in terms of not only on the pitch, but off the pitch too, and find too much to poke holes at. I mean, yeah, spoiler alert, I don't particularly like Everett as a bloke, but doesn't matter, does it? There's been a lot of footballers we've had over the years I don't particularly like or think I'd get on with especially well. But as long as they're delivering the goods for Bolton, then that's what matters most to me. It's been different last few years, though, as well, because my match-going experience has changed a little bit. You know, my kids are getting a bit older. They come to the game with us now. So I'm seeing it through their eyes. I'm seeing their enjoyment, their excitement. And don't get me wrong, on occasion, I've looked about 20 foot to my left and I've seen Lee pegging it up the stairs after his lad running away from him at the match. And I'm thinking, flipping heck, I'm glad I didn't take my kids when they were that young. But I think I've got a renewed
choice.
I've got a renewed appreciation for football and for what it brings. And it's sort of spilled over into my life away from Wanderers too, with coaching and with helping out the kids and things like that. It's I think football for me has become something now that I can appreciate even more than perhaps I did a few years ago. And the enjoyment I'm getting back from, the atmosphere. And we'll probably talk about Derby in a bit, but games like that remind me of games that I particularly enjoyed and loved as a kid. It's all starting to be what I want it to be. And that might sound selfish and a little conceited, but again, I'd hark back to the sort of darkest days of the Wheaters, the Medines, the Parkinsons, Andersons, people like that, all to various degrees. I was on the brink of falling out of love with the club a little bit, but for Everett's rights and wrongs, he's brought me back in, and that's good enough for me.
That's honestly a lovely summary, Chris, and it's nice to hear how not only your kids but how the club itself has kind of changed your perspective on things. It's honestly really nice to hear. But like you say, with your ups and downs of even during Everett's tenure, there's ups and downs that we're gonna have to go throughout this entire pod. But before we get into some of the games themselves, we've had a transfer window go by, and I think overall on the whole, started off really well. I think most people can say that. Had a bit of a dip, picked itself back up slightly, and then just really ended with a whimper when it felt like there could be more done. Lee, coming to you on that. With the only transfer activity really being sadly getting his contract cancelled and then eventually moving to Wickham, and obviously Declan John getting on loan to Salford, which just feels like they were there, so that's why you're going. Does it feel like a complete wasted opportunity to bolster what different areas that we probably should have taken advantage of during that last bit?
I wasn't really abreast of transfer deadline day because I was in Ibiza for a wedding, so I was just completely oblivious to it. I was on the wedding day of the 3 days over there, so I didn't even look at my phone once, and I'm quite glad I didn't bother because obviously nothing happened. But obviously Sadlier and John going out were to be expected. They were never going to get out looking well with the injury crisis we've got now. Maybe not particularly those positions, but you never know, they might have played a game or two. But probably the right thing to do to let them both move on. Certainly John, never thought he was up to it defensively. Sadly, he could have got better opportunities, I thought, at times, but a little bit unlucky. But hey ho, I don't think he'll rip up trees either at Wickham personally. So I think he might have to drop down to League Two really to find his proper level. But so in terms of actually doing something, the missed opportunities, I think the main one was really someone as proper competition for Dacres Cogley, but I think probably Gethin is probably. I don't really want him right centre half anyway because he's not going to be the best one for the job there. I think you could probably have Toll and Forrester ahead of him, although Toll might be needed on the left with the form of Idale. So I think maybe in a roundabout way of saying we probably did need some sort of competition for Cogley. That was my main point, my main sort of sticking point with the work with the business we did do over the window, that we didn't bring. So we were going to bring in Kane Wilson, and that was after we'd signed. The deal was done with Cogley. So the fact we didn't go back in for someone else makes me think a little bit like why haven't we? But equally, was it the start that Cogley's made that's been pretty impressive on the whole? Although I don't think he's much of a goal threat like Bradley was, and I think you need that from your wing backs. He's got no left foot either, but if he had all these things, he'd be playing in the Prem. So can't have it all. But in terms of bringing that right wing back in, that obviously didn't happen, which is a bit of a worry. And obviously, a lot of people I think were saying on Twitter. Like I said, I barely go on Twitter or X or whatever. I barely go on it anymore. I used to be obsessed with it, so I don't really know what the fan base was saying. But in terms of getting another striker in, obviously, if we'd lost Dion, obviously he seems to be all right now with his the shoulder injury. But if we maybe lost him earlier, perhaps we would have done something. But people, I think, talk of us maybe going in for Clark Harris when he's 850 grand. It's just pie in the sky. It's just never going to happen. I mean, I don't know how Bristol Rovers can afford to pay that for him, which basically the deal didn't go through. I listened to that Hard Truth podcast, and the deal didn't go through because Bristol Rovers admins didn't send the facts in time to the EFL, and it was just like a balls up from there. And according to Darren McCanty anyway, so they were literally going to sign him for that money, and we're never going to pay that for a 29-year-old. It doesn't fit the ethos of the club and what we're doing, what we're trying to do now in buying sellable assets in the main. We're barely signing anyone over 20, 25 really now, are we? So I don't really know what else we could have done. Obviously, the injuries that have hit Mendes Gomez and Magoma in the last week perhaps show that we could have done with something else, because we've not really got anything to change the game off the bench apart from maybe Aaron Morley. But yeah, I don't think it's a massive missed opportunity. I think the squad as of the 31st of August was pretty good, but now it looks not as good because of injuries. But that you don't know how many are going to hit you and when, so you can't really just stockpile players. We've not, like Ebbett said, our budget's not infinite. So you can't just stockpile players just because you might get a glut of injuries, and now we've had a glut of injuries, so it obviously looks worse. That our business looks worse now than it did 2 weeks ago. So yeah, so I don't think it's been a massively disappointing window. I think it's been probably a 7.5 out of 10. But I'll let someone else speak now because I'm starting to waffle.
No, it's fine. Yeah, it's fine. It's fine, Lee. To be fair, you make a really good point. There is the hindsight there at this point between the really recent rack of injuries of varying lengths and the suspensions that have crept up. That it's easy to say we probably should have brought in more, but like outside right wing back and maybe one other position just as a what's it called? Just as a buffer, you couldn't really ask for more than we actually did. But I'll come to you on that, Chris. Do you think the signings that we brought in really are fully up to the standard that we require to achieve the aims that we want to this season?
Yeah, I mean, start off. I think Lee, you made some really good points there, mate. I think that I would maybe point back to it's a bit early perhaps to call mistakes, but mistakes earlier on in the window in terms of who we've committed our spending on. I mean, find me a Bolton fan that thinks Undulu was worth the 150 grand or whatever as we spent on him, and I'll find you an idiot. He's someone that we shouldn't have brought back in. I wouldn't have re-signed Bodvarsson. Yeah, and then naturally that churn brings about a need to have a better backup for Dion. I think we all know that if he's injured for a sustained amount of time, we're absolutely shagged. He's the only one in the team that looks like he's going to score on a regular basis, and I fully accept that Adebayo's on 5 for this season. But again, remain to be fully convinced by him and his performances. I like Cogley. I think he's looked promising, but I agree with Lee. I think his end product is a bit hit and miss. But for a free transfer from Tranmere Rovers, I think we couldn't have asked for much better than what he's produced so far. I'm quite happy with him. I probably wouldn't have let Declan John go, only on the back of, again, an injury down that side leaves us short. Everett seems mysteriously averse to playing Ashworth in anything other than the pointless cup trophies that we're playing in midweeks. I don't even think he was he on the bench on Saturday? I don't recall.
To be fair, I think he picked up an injury during the international break.
All right, okay. Well, I'll just rewind on that then, because that's absolute rubbish. But again, I think when we get 1 or 2 injuries, it shows that our squad building is maybe a little bit out of whack. Mendes Gomez, again, is only a young lad, 24. I think he is. He's still got a bit to prove for me in his first 8 weeks, whatever it is, since he's joined us. He's not really taking the game by the scruff of the neck. And I think the point that you guys made before about game changers off the bench is totally valid. Obviously, we sold our game changer last January, didn't we, when Dapo moved to Germany. I think the squad is lacking in spark. Again, it seems churlish, doesn't it, when we're 7th, 3 or 4 points off top of the league, nitpicking. But my honest feelings is that at the moment we're probably doing about as well as we should be doing for having a fairly thin squad, what with injuries and suspensions. Gethin Jones has been a problem for me for 12 months. I think he's been poor. Don't remember a game he's played in particularly well. Yeah, he goes with the goodwill of all Bolton fans, given what he's been through on a personal level. But I think that's carried him a little bit. I wouldn't be upset if he got replaced, or if he had have been replaced, I should say, as the window closed. That reliance on him in that position is concerning too. Again, full confession, I didn't go on Saturday for personal reasons, but I believe Forrester was excellent and Forrester did well. I'm interested to see him develop more as well. So I think the model that they're going down, we're buying investable assets and sellable assets under 24, under 25 years old is right. I think it's sustainable. I wonder what the extent of the club's spending power might be in December if we're in the same position, sort of, like between sort of 3rd and 6th or 7th, shall we say, whether they'll push the boat out a little bit, find a bit of that bond money behind the back of the sofa and perhaps spend it like they tried to do last season. I know Adebayo came in on the back of a good 6 months with Burton, but again, I don't think he's ripped up any trees at Wanderers since joining. That hat-trick he scored aside. So I think there still remains some work to be done in the squad. I don't think we can grumble too much about the goalkeepers. I think they're okay for this level. Not seen anything that's particularly upsetting or particularly offensive. An injury to Santos is always going to cause us problems, I guess. So it wouldn't surprise me if we perhaps reinforced at the back. I know we did it last season. Was it last season we signed Mbete? I know a lot of look to you, Lee, for things like this because my memory's not what it was. Yeah. I think the midfield is okay. I think the midfield is okay, but I would prefer a decent alternative to Dion. He would always be my number one pick. I think he's fantastic, but I don't particularly have much faith in the backup strikers at this moment in time.
Okay, I think they're all very valid thoughts to varying degrees. Speaking of that money, maybe we just need a cup run because we started our cup campaigns. I mean, expecting to get beat by Borough, that was always going to happen. But our Pizza Trophy defence is at least going all right, even if we did lose the aforementioned Mendes Gomez in the Salford match. So I just want to put this question briefly. Do you think it's worth, at this point, since we've got that early win, do you think it's worth risking stronger sides out in this stage of the competition when we've got 2 group games left? And right now we're in a pretty good position to advance to the next round. That's an open question. Who wants to take it?
Well, I'll go first. Yeah, I think it's in line with the heritage of the club to have a strong cup campaign. And again, it provides a bit of relief and it provides a bit of a secondary distraction for the supporters. But most of all, it's what we've done. I know, to various degrees of success in the last 20 years, but speaking as a bit of an older fart, James, compared to you, the cup runs were what I built my early years of watching Bolton on, beating Everton, beating Liverpool, the likes of that back in the 90s. So I'm always up for a cup run. You'll never hear me decrying the cups, unless I have in writing on the website, in which case I take it back.
Yeah, I have to ask quickly, did you go to Wembley last season?
Yeah, we'll talk about that another time, shall we? Another day. Again, a sore topic in terms of life outside of Bolton Wanderers that gets in the way.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair enough. It just feels like Lee's the only one that couldn't go now, though. At this point, but I won't decry to Lee. Now that we've covered the cups in outstanding detail and the transfer window, let's get into the actual meat of the matter, which has been our league performance. We last recorded literally to the exact day a month ago, the 24th of August, and it is now the 24th of September. And since then, we've had 2 draws, 1 loss, and 1 win, which is not amazing, not the worst either. We'll get into the first game coming to you, Lee. A 1-1 draw with Burton, a ground which we've suffered tremendously at in the past. So after considering all the performance, would you take a point after that?
Yeah, like I said, I didn't see the game, but seen a few bits and bats, highlights, and read a bit about it. It seemed like probably a point was roughly a fair result. I think they probably finished the game a bit stronger from what I read. I mean, it was straight after the Wigan debacle, wasn't it? So I think just to get back on the horse and just come away with a point from a ground which you've historically just not been at the races at, and just completely. I remember the day after my twins were born, we were 3-0 down within half an hour at Burton, so at least that didn't happen. So yeah, it's a point against a side we should be beating because they've been absolutely dreadful this season in every game apart from that one, I think. So I think they did go to Vale. They went to Vale and won 3-2 midweek, which was obviously Vale were flying high, but they're never going to stay there. So, but yeah, apart from that, that's the only other game they played well in. But one of those. Didn't really expect us to go there and win, especially after how we played against Wigan. So I was reasonably happy with the point, I suppose.
Yeah, you take those, don't you? Chris, do you kind of agree, considering Burton's really been a bogey team when we've travelled away?
Yeah, completely. I think I always think, I've said on here before over the years, that any away game, a draw is your starting point, isn't it? It's not a bad result. Any away game, not to lose. That's always my starting point anyway. Doesn't matter who we're playing against, as long as we don't lose, then everything else is a bonus. So it's a tough place to go, isn't it? And I watched the game on the dodgy box, and we were uninspiring, to say the very least. And so, yeah, I was quite content.
Yeah, you can't complain about points on the board, even if it's a dull 1-1 draw, I suppose. But thankfully, something a lot more exciting followed that, and that was a 2-1 win against potential promotion rivals Derby County. Although I'd say, just speaking for myself, outside of that last 20-minute flurry when they were somehow better after we scored the second goal, I'd say overall they didn't really look too much like promotion candidates. But I'll leave it to you two lads to get into the meat of the matter regarding that game. Chris, starting with you, because I think you did say that you went to that game. How did you find everything? And it's a really, really good result to build ourselves back up again from.
Oh no, it totally was. I enjoyed that more than I've enjoyed a game for a good while. Again, for full disclosure, holidays, things like that got in the way, so I've not had my attendance, despite my season ticket holding status, has been pretty shit this year. But on the whole, I thought last Saturday was absolutely fantastic. I love the atmosphere. I thought the way we played in the first half was better than I'd seen us play for a long time. I think under Everett, the way he talks, the game that he wants us to play, obviously he's up on like Guardiola, people like that. He talks about his influences. I think the Derby game was perhaps as close to the first half of the Derby game was perhaps as close to as perfect for that vision as we've been over the last 3 seasons since he's joined us. I think the team he picked was bob on. The way we came out and attacked Derby was fantastic, and we played some really, really good stuff, and we looked really comfortable. It's almost a bit typical of Bolton in the last couple of years that level of comfort doesn't necessarily always translate into goals. And obviously we know now after the fact that shaky red card for the Derby goalkeeper, it wasn't a great decision, but obviously for us, it allowed us to then get to emphasise that foothold in the game. And yeah, the last few minutes were a bit more hairy than I would have liked, but at no point did I particularly think we were going to lose. I thought the crowd were really buoyant, and the way the players responded was really positive too. Don't get me wrong, I think within that game also there was errors. I'll point at the fact that if I ever see Mendes Gomez as a right wing back again, I'll just start calling him Kieran Sadlier and Dapper. When will the manager learn about that? He made too many changes to a team that didn't need changes made to it, if that makes sense. We were dominant, and the players in the team didn't look particularly tired. Don't think they were carrying any injuries. But obviously we get to 65 minutes and then it seems like all bets are off sometimes with Everett. He makes changes that are a little bit baffling, and that was one of them. And that disrupted our rhythm massively. Obviously, he's then got to get to 65 minutes in every game and consider taking Dion off. That just seems to be par for the course for every game we play in. But I really enjoyed it. I've watched the highlights back since. I've not been sad enough to watch the full game back since, but I've seen enough of the game after the fact to reflect on it and to enjoy the good stuff that came out of that game, which was definitely the first sort of 60 minutes. I thought we were really, really good. And on that basis, on that sort of performance, showing what we can do, that's the Bolton I want to see, that kind of dominant, attacking front foot kind of football, passing our way around a team that I did think would put up more of a challenge to us. And you're dead right, James. I think when they went down to 10 men, they were far better. But I do think that's coupled with the changes that we made that allowed them back in the game a little bit. So I'd love to see much more of that kind of Bolton Wanderers than the one that played against Burton, definitely.
That's quite the summary. Lee, do you have anything to add to any of that?
No, fuck all. I was in the air, so flying back from Ibiza. So I just literally read the live text commentary on the Bolton News website and just was cycling through. Like I like torturing myself, so just scrolling through like event by event and just hoping we hung on at the end, like corner after corner after corner, and then obviously, yeah. So I just did it on live text, but that's a great summary from Chris, and I've just seen the 2-minute highlight package, so I've got nothing else to add on that really. Yeah, Chris has summed that up great.
Yep, fair enough. Then I'll give you another following point that I kind of want to add regarding to that game. There was a very Everett usually likes his very weird quotes. At the point, he really shows his Keith Hill side when it comes to his arrogance. Which it's rare nowadays, but he still shows it every now and again. And the thing that kind of ruffled me a bit was his use of substitutes being labelled as finishers, when the only thing that they finished, like Chris said, was our momentum in that derby game. So,
yeah, they certainly don't finish. They certainly don't finish their dinners, do they?
Yeah, yeah. With that, do you think Ian has a tendency to potentially push his luck? We all know he's got an ego about him, but a lot of managers do. But do you think at points he just really tends to push his luck, especially when there's so much riding on a campaign like this, when we've got the label we have of being one of the favourites for promotion?
I think it was calling substitute finishes is not really egotistical. It's just a bit unnecessary.
It's just weird.
I've heard it. Oh yeah, I've heard it before. I think it's random. I think it was when AFC Wimbledon. I think they had like a set pieces coach when they were in League One, and I think it was their old manager who was like the academy manager and came through. He called their subs finishers. I think that's the first time I heard it actually. But so it's something that's crept into football parlance in the last sort of couple of years, really. So it's not. I don't think that's particularly. I think sometimes. I think I said on the group the other day. I think sometimes Everett, he does get. He's obviously said that much stuff over the years that is a bit odd or arrogant, odd stroke arrogant. That I think people pick up on nearly every word he says now, and maybe use it a bit of a stick to beat him with when he's not really said much wrong there. He's just basically saying he's kind of what's the word? He's trying to get to the point that he's trying to involve everyone. That if you're on the bench, you're still a really important part of the side, and especially with the injury time, obviously it didn't seem to transpire as much yesterday. There was less than I thought there was going to be at the end of both halves yesterday, actually, which is probably a good thing. Seeing as we were down to 10 men for all of that period. But I think in terms of a player coming on after 70 minutes, which it seems like Chris said, he seems to be contractually obliged to do, is bring at least two subs on, or at least bring Dion off at 70 odd minutes. The fact he wants the substitutes involved, they might be on the pitch for half an hour, which is a third of the game, and that third of the game is generally, as you come to the end of the game, it's more important, isn't it? And the results often in the balance at that point. So you could argue, Victor playing 65 minutes and John Daddy paying 30, whatever happened yesterday. I don't know if it's quite that, but you could argue John Daddy Bodvarsson's contribution is probably going to be more pivotal to the result of the game. So sort of calling these players finishers and maybe makes them feel more involved. I'm sure that all the players, know full well that they're a substitute at the end of the day. They've not been picked because the other guy's more favoured. But if you look at it in the way that, like I say, the game's in the balance and you're coming on to affect that, and you're the man in possession of the shirt when the game's closing, then I suppose it does keep those players maybe more motivated and involved. So I think that's probably what I think about the usage of the word finishers. Yeah.
Yeah. I suppose maybe it just rankled me more than you lads, because I'm not a fan of that kind of change of language when it's just vocabulary. It's just totally unnecessary after something like that. But at the end of the day, I suppose it is more of a minor point and possibly psychologically tactical, like you mentioned. I don't know. We'll leave that one up for the fan base to decide if they ever want to bring it up again. But moving on to the next game. Now, this was a game that I was actually unable to watch. I was bit busy doing some filming elsewhere at the time. But we unfortunately fell into our second charity game of the season, where we just seem to be giving points to all the teams that have had theirs taken away from them for various reasons. The 2-1 loss to Reading. Leo, I'll let you have this one again. Why couldn't our strikers finish their dinners bar one time during that game?
Again, I don't really get to watch the Saturday 3:00 games. There's too much family stuff going on. So the only away games I get to properly sit down and watch these days are the sort of 7:45 kickoffs. Seen the highlights, and I've seen one particular sort of misfiring from Victor when he sort of gets played through, takes a touch. I don't know what he was doing. I've seen the Dion one that he injured himself with, which is more of like a stretch to try and get to the ball. I think it was. To be honest, I've not really looked at the highlights in massive detail. I just looked at I think like a minute and a half's worth of it, like I say. So I've not really seen in true detail how bad we were in front of goal, but certainly looking at again, just following Mark Isles on the Bolton News website, it did seem like we should have been out of sight at half time. And I think football is just it's a low scoring, low margin game, and it most of the time, unless you're Sheffield United home to Newcastle. Like you say, it's just a case of taking your chances when you're on top. And if the opposition takes their chances when they're on top, then invariably you lose if you don't do the same. So it's one of those, really. I don't think our strikers as a unit are particularly up to the level of being automatically promoted. We're going to need to rely on Dion, and we need more goals from midfield, like from the likes of Dempsey, even Randall Williams. Whoever can chip in needs to chip in, because there's clearly not enough goals in the side unless one of the strikers has an absolute, barnstormer of a day. So obviously, neither of them scored. Dion scored probably the hardest chance of the whole game. It looked to me as a good finish from a tight angle, and then the rest of the chances I've seen, looked easier to score, a lot of them. So yeah, one of those days. As soon as we didn't take those chances, and you just knew it'd be Robbie Savage's son who'd score, didn't you? So after what happened 20, God knows how many years back now, but at the Reebok when he got Dean Ellsworth and Paul Walris sent off in that game when Big Sam had his heart monitor on, and God, that was a long time ago. It's about 21 years ago now, isn't it? Something like that. But so annoying, disappointing, but it's just football, isn't it? We move on. We did move on.
I suppose we do just get results like that. And yeah, the weird dichotomy, like you said, of Dion scoring the hardest chance, but between him and Vic missing the easiest ones, and yet they're both on 5 goals this season. Like, try to explain it. That's football for you. Chris, one other aspect from that match that seemed to really rankle fans is what has been a consistent problem ever since we've been, well, for as long as I can remember, and that's EFL referees who were apparently really poor and inconsistent during this game, culminating in a second yellow for Owen Toll that, by all accounts from what I've heard, was quite harsh.
It seems to be everywhere, doesn't it? At the minute, I'm watching the Premier League yesterday and watching a bit of the Premier League today. They're not immune either to what's going on. I think it all bleeds down from the top. It's never been poor, has it? I know we've seen a lot in the last sort of 3 years on our descent down into League Two, and then on our way back up again. That the standard is the same. Don't matter what league you're in. The referees are hopeless. The linesmen are hopeless. The injury time debacle at the minute with the trend of adding on double digits in terms of injury time. It's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. I don't think we're any. I know this isn't against the sort of narrative online, but I don't think we're any worse off than other teams. I think there are, a couple of referees that you look at and you think, oh shit, you're in for a bit of a roller coaster of an afternoon. But I don't think we help ourselves at times as well. I've seen the ridiculous outcry against Saturday and Jones's tackle, for example, where he could have broken the lad's leg quite easily. I think you've got to hold your hands up sometimes and say that we're guilty of stuff. Ever getting booked on the sidelines, he knows the rules. They all have visits from the referees before the season starts, so you know what is and what isn't acceptable. How hard is it to follow those guidelines? Why can't you just keep your mouth shut? Get it? From the sidelines, it's easy to say. It's an emotional game. It's an emotive time. But to me, these professionals should be better at keeping their emotions contained. And so I think we bring a lot of it on ourselves. I think, again, harking back to the tackle on Saturday, The winger was taking a man on in a fairly standard fashion. There was no need for Jones to try and take him out midway between ankle and knee. So yeah, the ones that we've been guilty of, we're guilty. Absolutely no problem. Don't get me wrong. I'm still thinking back to Dion being sent off against is it Fleetwood? I think it was Fleetwood when Jay Lynch was messing about with him and he was messing about with Jay Lynch. They're the ones that rankle, I think, where they could be described as soft. But for the most part, I'm not necessarily thinking we're behind some sort of mega conspiracy. The only conspiracy I buy into is who signed Undulu. I think that's worthy of further investigation. It makes no sense to me.
Yeah. We can potentially talk about Undulu with the Peterborough game, but going on to you, Lee, because we've mentioned Gethin Jones's red card, which, let's be honest, thoroughly deserved. Terrible challenge. But just outside of that, we've got some real disciplinary issues at the moment. I mean, we're only 8 games in, and already we have 3 red cards. You can argue whether someone deserve, and obviously it's 4 if you count Evert's weird one for technology usage, which was bizarre, but we'll describe that one. Yeah, exactly. Another one rescinded, and 21 yellows, five of which earned by Thomason alone, which means he misses Port Vale next week. So, do you think there's a mounting disciplinary issue with the squad? I know we've not got the most yellows and reds cumulatively point wise in the league table, but it's becoming worrying, especially with our squad currently getting thinner and thinner as the games go on in recent times.
Yeah, I'm not overly worried. I don't think many of the yellows and stuff have been for like dissent and just daft stuff like throwing the ball away. There's been the odd one, obviously, with the tightening down of the clamping down of those sort of offences. But I mean, Thomason's a walking yellow, isn't he? He's not quick enough to keep up with from like a standing start. He's not quick enough to keep up with sort of nipping midfielders, and and he's always going to get. He's just guaranteed to get a yellow nearly every game, and he seems at the moment. So, but yeah, at least he's got his head screwed on a little bit, so he's not actually getting.
I did 5 minutes of research
yellow
before, Lee. If you don't mind me interrupting, Thomason's had 7. We've only had 16 as a team.
I was only counting the league ones, but yeah, it's 21 in league if you discount like second yellows.
So the rest of the team.
He's had a third. He's had a third of our yellow cards on his own.
Yeah,
it's crackers.
Yeah, well, I suppose it's probably better than having like 4 or 5 players on 4 yellows already, and then we've got maybe 3 or 4 going and likely to be suspended. So if he's taking one for the team more often than not, then yeah. But yeah, I just think with the Gethin challenge yesterday, it was just a weird one. I don't actually remember one bad challenge he's made in his like 3 years here. I can't pinpoint one challenge. I don't watch every game. I don't go to every away game, but I've seen one. You would have thought. Sorry, am I still there?
Yeah, you're back.
Yeah. So if you'd done a bad one, you'd have seen it. So yeah, that was a bit out of character, really. It just like he mistimed it, went in with like the wrong leg, really, in a way. So yeah, not overly worried. The other red card, like Chris mentioned, was a bizarre one for Dion Charles, where he seems to get booked for maybe a bit of back chat. They never really clarified what he'd been sent off for, what his second yellow was against Fleetwood was for. It's such a daft one because with 3-0 up, the game was done. I don't know why he was getting involved with Lynch in the first place. Seemed to sort of barge into whatever. That's ages ago now. It doesn't really matter now. So, well, it did matter because obviously he didn't play the Wigan game and then we got battered. So,
I don't think it would have made much of a difference if he started.
I don't think so. It might have done. Right, you just don't know. It's one player can make a huge difference. But in terms of, I don't think we've got a disciplinary issue. So I don't see that the players are losing their heads or. I think Everett. The only thing. The only issue I've got with Everett is saying to Jack Deere in the interview after the game, the thing that frustrated me the most about today was my yellow card. Like it doesn't matter. I understand you get a suspension for 3 yellows as a manager on the touchline. That doesn't even matter if you're not there anyway, because you should be able to implement your tactical plan, and your assistant should be able to implement your own ideas on, as the game goes on anyway. So even if he's missing the touchline, it shouldn't affect our chances to win the game, really. And him getting a yellow, it's just absolutely fucking irrelevant. Like, whether, you can be annoyed and say, I don't know why, as a footnote, you can say, I'm not sure why I got a yellow because I didn't swear again. Yeah, again, I didn't swear, and I wasn't, in my opinion, I wasn't aggressive, so I don't know why they're booking me. But to say that was the most frustrating thing about the afternoon, when we've not won a home game, which, we've done well to get a point in the end, I get that. It's just a weird turn of phrase from him again. It's just an unnecessary, like, make it about me sort of thing again, which again I've said that Everett gets, his persona, he's a stick to beat him with when he comes up with some things which I don't even think he's done wrong, but on this occasion I just don't know why he's brought it up. I just don't know why he's even talking about it. It's just such a non-event that it's not even worth talking about it to the media, and that just riled me up a little bit when I heard that this morning. So anyway, that's my thoughts on it.
Yeah, there's always little bits that rankle here and there, but despite all of these potential issues, overall, going into the actual Peterborough game itself, overall, it's quite a positive result. Responding instantly to going down after a very, very quick goal and nice reactions from Adebayo, and after going down to 10 men. Even though the post saved our skin a couple times, overall the defending was quite resilient, and arguably even the subs of Bodvarsson and Lundeloo freshening up the team actually made a difference, which was a nice change considering previous matches substitutes either halted our momentum or just didn't really make any impact at all. So, yeah, Chris, coming to you, is it a satisfying point in the end?
Yeah, it's one of them, isn't it? I think on the surface of things, you want to win all your home games, especially against a team that's not doing as well as you. But I think given the circumstances of the conceded of going behind, of the injuries that we've got, of the red card, coping with that, I'm not too disappointed. I think by the fact we came out with a point, it could have been worse. Again, looking at the team we started with, probably a couple of people in there that I wouldn't necessarily pick in my first choice starting 11, but those things were forced upon us. And I guess it's a squad game, isn't it, too? So the more minutes that people can get on the pitch at that time will benefit us going forward. I think the only one that does bother me a little bit is Morley. I like him a lot, and I would name him in my preferred starting 11, probably over Thomason. And I like Thomason too. I think Morley's better. But obviously, since getting hooked at half-time at Wigan, I think he's only played about 15 minutes, 20 minutes, something like that. He did something similar last season, didn't he, Everett, where he dropped him out of the first team for a number of weeks, and fair play to Morley, he came back stronger. But I would prefer us to go with our sort of leading foot forward, and to me, that Morley would be the man in the middle of that midfield dictating the play. I think when I saw him in pre-season at Everton, and then the first game of the season, I thought he'd come back looking stronger and fitter and faster. And I don't know what it is. I didn't think his performance against Wigan was so bad as to get the treatment that he's had off Everton. I'm not sure if you guys disagree.
I'm in the disagree camp, but it's a game of opinions.
Yeah, but for me, that's the only change I would have made. I think I would have started Morley again, knowing the situation with Thomas and his disciplinary tightrope he was walking. But yeah, I think all things considered, a point's it's not horrendous. And I think as long as we don't lose, then there's positives to be taken out of every game.
Yeah, that's completely fair. And regarding Morley, obviously with Thomason getting his suspension now, we're pretty much down to 3 noted first-team midfielders, so he's very likely to get his chance against Port Vale next week, which is the next thing that we'll be covering. Obviously Port Vale next week, away from home. They did lose to Burton in the last game, but despite getting pumped 7-0 by Barnsley on the opening game of the season, they've actually gotten off to a bit of a flyer, which is weirdly surprising. So Lee, with our threadbare squad, considering that we'll only have Tor back, but we'll probably be missing Thomason. We will be missing Thomason and Jones, along potentially with all the other injuries that we've already got. How do you fancy our chances against them?
Yeah, it's just another one of those grounds. It's just a horrible. It's not a very nice place, is it, around there? And just, yeah, I'm sure there's not going to be that many Port Vale fans on here who are going to be watching this. So I'm not too worried about getting a backlash and people from Burslem knocking on my door. So I won't see any around there. So yeah, it's just a bit of a crap ground and just a tough one to go to, innit?
Well, the game last season was certainly a bit of a horror because it was boiling as in that concourse, and we ended up having to go see a 0-0 where we were mainly defending because Santos got sent off weirdly for really harsh reasons.
Ross Joyce again, yeah.
Yep.
Same ref as Saturday. So he's now sent off our captain in his last 3 games. He's refereed us. That's a stat for you, isn't it? Because Gethin was captain.
That's a good one, that. I didn't realise that.
Gethin was captain on Saturday. So yeah, I don't know
whether
that's
pub quiz king.
I don't know whether that's the only 3 games he's refereed us, but if it is, that's some going in it. But to be fair, Saturday was a send-off. So anyway, so we don't know Geth, we've no George, we've no Ricardo. Who else have we not got? Like I say, Dion seems to be all right.
Mendes, Gomez, Magoma.
There was talk Ashworth. I think I read something that Mark Howells put on the website the other day about Ashworth just being maybe like a week-long injury. So maybe he might be back, but he's not going to start anyway, is he? So unless he thinks he can play in left centre half. But for me, it'll probably going to be you're probably looking at a Toll at centre back, aren't you? Forrester right centre back and Idale left centre back. It's only three left, really, isn't it? To be honest,
same with the midfield.
So the team, we can pretty much name the team now. It'll be Baxter, Cogley, Toll, Forrester, and Idale. Williams left wing back. I would have thought. I can't, like I say, Ashworth's not even available. There's no one else for it. Morley, Sheehan, and Dempsey, and then Victor and Dion up front. That's the team, isn't it? It has to be pretty much. So unless he throws a spanner.
Or unless we get more injuries against United's kids on Tuesday midweek game.
Well, for me, he's literally got to just not play. We've won the first game, so the chances are we're probably going to get through anyway because 2 teams get through out of the 3. It's not even important if we get through anyway. If we end up at Wembley again, would anyone be really that arse? I mean, they would go, obviously, but to see us
with the first ever team as last season.
No, to see us with the first ever team to defend it, I might decide that I fancy a trip to Wembley this time, so see if we can take Finn. But it's a long way off anyway. I'm sure if we get to the semi, I'll be wanting us to win it. But for now, it's not important. Just literally play the kids. He's going to have to. Maybe just throw in Jerome can play. That's it. With the kids, just mentor him. But yeah, so with Vale, here's the question: is how do you think we're going to do, and what do you think the team's going to be? We can't just keep going to places like Burton and obviously we lost at Reading, but we can't. We said going to Burton and getting a point, so all right, it's fine. It's kind of not fine when you're looking to be top 2, is it? So I think we need to go to Port Vale and win. Really, can't just keep drawing at East Place. We're not winning all our own games, so we probably do need to go there and win, which it's not easy because they've started the season. Well, they've started it horrendously, but then since then they've been decent, haven't they? I think they drew at Cambridge yesterday, didn't they? 1-1. Was it 1-1 away at Cambridge? I think it was. Yeah, they lost at home to Burton midweek. So yesterday, I think it was 1-0. But they seem to be doing quite well under. It's basically Darryl Clark's assistant, Andy Crosby, I think. I don't know an awful lot about him, but they seem to be doing quite well. They've brought in a couple of midfielders. Ethan Chislett, who we were briefly linked with at one point in the window, who was at AFC Wimbledon last year, and he's been doing pretty well from by all accounts. And they re-signed James Wilson, ex-United striker. He was there last year, but they sort of released him and then re-signed him again once he proved his fitness. So they're the sort of two leading lights in the side at the moment, I think. So it's not going to be an easy one. Obviously, Forrester going back to Vale Park as well. It looks like he's going to play, so that's another angle in it to be looked at. And we'll just have to see. Like I say, I just think we need to go there and put a statement of intent out and come away with a couple of goal, 2-0 victory or something, which sort of gets us firmly back on track because we've stuttered, haven't we, big time in the last sort of 3 weeks since Wigan. We've only, like I say, won 1, drawn 2, and and lost one, it's that's not going to get us promoted. So we need to go there and win.
Yeah, and just looking at it now, our away record is literally 1 win, 1 draw, and 1 loss so far this season. So pretty spread out. So regarding that, then Chris, what do you think with Port Vale? Do you think we can put that as 2 in the wins column, or is it more likely to be a draw or a loss?
No, I think we should be looking to win that one, and I agree with Lee. I think that you made a point about a statement victory. I'm not saying that the fan base is divided or there's any kind of underlying negativity or undercurrent of kind of grumbling, other than what naturally exists as being a Bolton fan. But I think, given the way that we played against Derby, I know that was only 2 weeks ago, but it already feels like a while ago in terms of what's come since. So I think us to go there and to win comfortably, a 2-0, a 3-0, or whatever it might be, definitely the order of the day as far as I'm concerned. I think we need to put another marker in there and keep in that top 4 kind of position. I think that's where we belong. First and second, yeah, why not? Third and fourth, minimum expectation as far as I'm concerned. Improvement year on year. And I'm confident. I think we'll do it.
Yeah, that's great to hear. How confident are you? What's your actual score prediction?
Oh, my days. Well, speaking as an experienced gambler that won £10 today on Arsenal versus Tottenham, I've clearly got this locked in, making a prediction. So, yeah, I'll take a 2-0.
Lee, your score prediction?
That's the score we should win by, but we won't. 1-1, because I'm a pessimistic bastard.
Because you only had 1 drink.
True.
We'll take a 1-0. We'll take those all day long.
I said 1-1.
Oh, sorry, 1-1.
1-1, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that sounds a lot more pessimistic.
Yeah.
Well, we're obviously going to bet. We need to be better than Barnsley, so it's obviously going to be 8-0 to Bolton. But if we're being totally realistic, I genuinely think we can come away with 2-1, barring and no more referee mishaps, because we were on top against them at their ground before he sent Santos off. So let's hope that doesn't happen again. But yeah, I'll go for 2-1 myself. Okay. And purely just because we've been spacing these pods out a bit recently, so we'll also briefly cover the 2 remaining games before the international break. I'll give you one each. Lee, coming to you. We've got 2 home games in a row. First one against high-flying Stevenage, right after Port Vale. Give us an overview, and how do you think we'll do against Stevenage?
Is that a Tuesday night game?
Yeah, that's a Tuesday night game.
Is it? Oh, good. I'll be able to go to that. Good. Yeah,
you can give me a lift.
Yeah, well, straight from Longridge. You have to meet me up in Longridge when I finish with shift. Yeah, Stevenage. Been good, haven't they? Steve Evans, usual sort of cliches about the way his teams play, sort of run true, really. Just sort of get it up quickly. And Carl Piergiani, ex-Oldham and Salford. He was at the documentary with Salford. He was at Salford at the time in non-league when he came through. Sort of that. Yeah. He's very dangerous set pieces. He's got something like the most first contacts on set pieces in the whole EFL this season. So he's a massive danger from set pieces. So without Santos, looks like he's going to be out for. Someone mentioned he's out for a month. Santos this time, they reckon.
So in other words, we need Owen Toll marking him.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, they've got some decent play. The striker have scored a few goals. Jamie Reid, I think he is. He's sort of playing at the highest level he has done in his career, and he's doing quite well. Won't pretend to know an awful lot about many of the other players. Or they've got a midfielder. I think he's called. I think he's moved back to Colchester. I was going to say there's a midfielder called Arthur Reid who I like the look of. When we played him in League Two, but I think he might have gone to Colchester. So I might be talking shit there. But
the only midfielder I know they have is Forster Kasky, and that's it.
Yeah, I think Elliot List scored for them at the weekend. I think might be wrong again, but yeah, like I said, they've got they haven't got sort of mega household names. They're very much a team geared towards set pieces and minimise, sort of keeping a bit of a low block. They're not overly bothered about having too much possession of the ball. They're more sort of about hitting you on the counter. And yeah, we're at home. Again, it's a game, irrespective of where they are in the league. It's a game we've got to be looking at winning, isn't it? If we think we're good enough to be in the top two. So yeah, I mean, it's a game we should be winning. I'd like to think it's a game we will win, but it just depends on our attitude and application on the night, doesn't it?
Yeah. So in other words, we kind of need to do what we did against Stevenage, who play kind of similar, or did play kind of similar under Scott Brown. That's hit him early and hit him quickly.
Oh yeah, Fleetwood, yeah.
True.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough summary. Chris, you've got the other one. Another home tie against, on paper, a much easier side in Carlisle United. How many should we really be sweeping them by?
Oh, at least 10. I mean, Lee will know. My regular pre-match text to Lee is, I've never heard of any of these players that play on the other team. I follow Wanderers, and I didn't even know Steve Evans was in charge of Stevenage. I don't know who these players are that you're talking about. I couldn't name you a single Carlisle United player if my life depended on it. So on that basis, I think we should be scoring at least 10. And if we don't, then he's got to go. Warnock's available. The stars are aligning. Warnock's there. We might have a job going vacant next couple of weeks. Surely the time's right at 70, whatever he is, to take the job that he should have had 20 years ago. Again, win your own games. It's all we can ask, isn't it? And if we do so comfortably, then all the better.
Yeah, and that's totally fair. And that'll be the last one. I mean, there is Barnsley away, but that's during the That's probably going to be moved into the national break.
Not good international break, is there? Fucking hell.
Yeah.
Euro these international breaks are just an absolute joke, aren't they? Horrendous.
Yeah.
No one likes international football. Suck it off.
Well, the worst part about it is that we're going to have to play so many away games in a row. I mean, with Shrewsbury being moved to 7th November, that'll make it 3 away games in a row in a 2-week period. That's an absolute nightmare. But not much you can do when you've got players on form, and I'd say you've been on form tonight, lads. It's been an absolute pleasure having you for this podcast.
Look at that segue.
Smooth. What a smooth host you are. You better remember that Will we used to have, and that Dan and Eddie and Dennis and people like that. Oh, you're miles better these days. Look how smooth and polished you are. Love it.
I can come up with quick ones nowadays, but I do tend to fumble over my words. But hey, we can't be perfect, and neither are Bolton Wanderers. But hey, that's how it is. But outside of that, it's been an absolute pleasure having you, lads. Very nice welcome back for you, Chris. And hopefully we get to see you a lot more regularly in the future. Lee, thanks for having. And don't worry, I know you like to bring up that you waffle because I mentioned it to you before, but you're really not that bad a waffler. Don't worry about it.
Thank you, James. Look at this. Can he, as Darius Dinesh once said, can you feel the love in this room?
What a link. What a link.
There's plenty of it.
R.I.P. Darius. He died last year, actually. Anyway, on that bombshell.
I was just about to say that's the most Alan Partridge thing I've heard on here, and then you followed it with an actual Alan Partridge line. So that's spot on that. Well done.
R.I.P. Darius Dinesh. You didn't think the pod would be ending like that, did you? I
think this is probably his favourite Bolton Wanderers podcast of all the Bolton Wanderers podcasts.
It's not going to be the one. It's not going to be the Wanderer, is it? Christ.
Oh fucking hell.
Oh dear. Okay. I'll probably keep that in the audio only. Speaking of which, thanks for those of you that have listened for our first ever stream on YouTube. We're just trying to mix it up from going on Twitter, this more stale platform, and hopefully in the future we'll get to see some of your comments as the stream goes on for future podcasts. For those of you,
and who wouldn't want to see our beautiful 3 mugs live and live and coming in your ears as Charlie FM. You say.
Speak for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, only live on Charlie FM. For those of you audio only listeners who listen up, as usual, it always goes out the next day. For those of you who can't make it to our streams or just prefer listening on the old Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. But for now, thanks for joining us. Thanks for joining us tonight, and thank you to the lads once more. And we'll see you later.
Cheers.
Cheers.